Welcome to the Backyard Bounty Podcast from heritageacresmarket.com, where we talk about all things backyard poultry, beekeeping, gardening, sustainable living, and more. And now, here's your host, Nicole.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Backyard Bounty. I'm your host, Nicole, and today we're joined by Anna, who's the owner of Beauty and the Bees and also cast of 90 Day Fiance Season 7. And today we're going to talk about beekeeping. So, Anna, thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Nicole. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for those of you that maybe haven't heard about you yet, can you give us a little bit more information about who you are?
I'm a mother of 3 boys. I've got a 16-year-old, 14-year-old, and 7-year-old, and I take care of them all the time. I'm the owner of Beauty and the Bees Honey, and I do this on my own. Awesome. I make different products with the honey and then beeswax, and I make soaps and bath and body products also.
So you keep yourself pretty busy between the boys and your business, I would assume.
And then I also take care of 2 intellectually disabled adults in my home.
Oh, how amazing. That's really amazing that you do that. That can be stressful, for sure.
I've been working with individuals for the past 11 years, and I love it. It's my other passion in life besides beekeeping. So.
Oh, that's great. I know that it's having some experience in that with being a first responder. You know, it's really great to see when people are there to help those that are disabled, because there's certainly a shortage of people that are so generous and open-hearted like yourself.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. So how did you become a beekeeper?
So the boy's grandfather is actually a pretty big beekeeper in Mexico, and that's how I was introduced to beekeeping. He has back then he had over 500 beehives, so I'm sure it's grown quite a bit. Him and his their grandfather and one of their uncles run the business down there, and so I was introduced through them. They would take me out sometimes to check out the bees, but the main thing that they would let me help out with was actually extracting and selling the honey. So twice a year we'd all get together and use the extractor, and we'd have barrels and barrels of honey. It was pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's definitely the hard work when it comes to beekeeping.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
So after you had that experience kind of on a commercial operation, how did you then decide to move into your own operation?
So then in Nebraska, I had spent a couple years without bees, but I decided, I was like, I just love the experience and working with them. I decided to do it on my own out here. I had to save up some money because getting into beekeeping is pretty expensive, as you know.
Oh, yeah.
So about 5 years ago, I just kind of, decided I was going to jump out or just buy buy the equipment. And then I ordered bees, and I started from there. I ordered 4 beehives, 4 bee nooks, and then the hives and all the equipment.
And how many hives do you run now?
I have 15 right now. The goal for this year was to have 30, but I lost half of my bees last winter, so I had to start, I guess, back up from scratch, basically.
Sure. Do you generally expand your apiary by splits, or do you usually buy bees?
I split the bees that I have, and then I did buy a couple packages. I think I bought how many. This year I used packages, which I haven't done before, and I bought, I think, 4 because the Nook orders that I had put in were canceled due to the beekeeper that we order from through the bee club. He had lost 2,000 colonies.
Oh, wow.
So he wasn't able to sell any Nooks this past spring. But I also split the hives that were remaining. So do you have a specific breed of bees that you prefer to use, or do you just kind of pick up whatever you're able to find along the way? When I order the packages, I've ordered through the Bee Club the past, I think, 2 years. I've ordered through the Bee Club, and it's kind of whatever they end up having, and usually they're mixed. Like last year or the year before, they told me they were Carnelians, but they were yellow. They were really yellow, and I'm like, no, they had to have been Italians. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of whatever I can get with their order, because they get a pretty good discount on Nooks when I order through them. And then this past year, I think they were Carnelians. And usually when I'm ordering my queens, I'll order Carnelians. I think last year I might have ordered a Saskatraz, I think. Mm-hmm. And I don't think she didn't make it. Oh, no. So, yeah, I seems like I always have issues with queens. That's probably pretty frustrating sometimes when you spend that much money on one queen and then they don't make it.
Yeah, I've kind of experienced that too. I've only bought 2 bees in my whole life, and it was 2 queens. And actually, really, I only bought 1 queen, and they ended up sending me another one because the first queen that I had some issues, and that was kind of just a bad experience. And after that, I've just decided to split my bees and let them raise their own queens, and I'm kind of done ordering queens for a while.
Yeah, I think that's the easiest thing to do. Just let them raise their own. I've always had issues when I order queens, and I try to order queens in the spring just when I'm splitting to make things like move a little faster. But half the time they don't make it, or something ends up going wrong.
Yeah, the joys of beekeeping.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned it in the beginning, but do you predominantly use your hives for honey or for the beeswax, or which one is kind of your main goal with your beekeeping?
So I raise them for honey. And then, of course, like I think the past 2 years I've been getting enough wax to kind of to use to produce some of the products I make. But I make more products with the honey.
Sure.
So I guess that's what I try to use them for. And out here, they do pretty well. There's a lot of nectar sources, so all summer collecting from them. So,
how much honey do you usually get off of a hive on average?
On average, sorry, I got to think about it.
You're fine.
It depends on the year. There's been years where I've only gotten maybe 25 pounds off of one hive, and then there's been years where I think I've gotten 100 pounds off of a hive. So
wow.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. Just every year seems different. This year they produced a ton of honey, and I'd go out, check them, and I pull as I go. I don't just leave it. I don't add boxes. Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand. Everybody has their own way of beekeeping, but I feel like it's easier just to pull it off as they fill it. Mm-hmm. And then you get the different varieties of honey also, which is neat, rather than just harvesting one.
Do you have any real notable varietals in your area?
I think this summer we had linden honey, which was, I'm pretty sure it was linden honey. I haven't sent any honey in to get tested yet.
Sure.
I don't know. I haven't done that yet, but I think it was linden honey is what they produced. It was really sweet and really light, and it was really tasty honey. I had a lot of customers that I think I sold out pretty quick of that stuff. So
awesome.
Yeah.
So you kind of mentioned that, in the winter you lost about half of your colonies. What are some other challenges that you've faced with beekeeping in your area?
The other thing, I don't have a whole lot of challenges. It's mainly the queens that I've always had issues with. And then wax moths. I haven't had too many issues with them, but I've had to deal with those. Oh my gosh, I hate wax moths.
They're the worst.
They're just gross.
Yeah.
I've had a couple weak hives that, I think I didn't check on them right, consistently, and they ended up being overtaken by them. And that was my first year. And then I didn't even really know about them my first year. I'd never dealt with them. And I had 2 hives not make it due to queens. And I had mentors and everything, and everyone was telling me a different thing I should do. And anyways, I ended up losing 2 colonies. And they told me, oh, just leave the equipment.
Oh, no.
Leave it over here. It'll be okay for until you get some more bees. Oh my gosh. I opened it up to move them back to my house, and it was just full of wax moths and all the larvae and
oh my gosh.
It was pretty disgusting. Yeah, and then I've had equipment, I have a big freezer and I stick frames in, and one time we went out of town. So I put all these frames in, went out of town, and I think one of the boys might have left the freezer cracked open. I got home, and the freezer was full of dead wax moths.
Oh no!
I'm talking hundreds.
Wow. Oh no!
So I scooped them out and threw them into the trash that I have down there next to the washing machine. And I think an hour later, I went to go switch the laundry, and there were hundreds of wax moths flying around downstairs.
Oh, no.
I didn't realize that, they would come back to life.
Right.
I think for a month I tried to get, I tried to kill as many as I could, but I had wax moths all over my house for a few weeks or a month. It was really bad. I just hate wax moths.
I imagine after that they would be kind of the nemesis.
And I've dealt with, small hive beetles. I had a friend that gave me a hive, and where they located it, they put it like in a shady area. And this hive I tried with, they didn't have a queen, so I tried to re-clean, and finally it ended up being taken over by a small hive beetle and the larva, and that's really gross too.
Yeah.
So those two are I haven't dealt a lot with them, but it's just, when it happens, it's just oh my gosh, it's just the worst. But I think my main thing is the queens, and then, the varroa mites. The first 2 years I did it, they would end up I forgot the name of it. Anyways, the brood ends up being, I'd have to look it up. There's something that affects the brood when you have a high varroa mite population.
Maybe
it kind of looks like foul brood or something. The larva kind of sinks down, but it's not like foul brood or any of that. And I've had to deal with that twice, but basically you just treat them and it takes care of it. At least with what I've dealt with them.
Mm-hmm. What are your mite treatments? What have you found that works best for your apiary in your area?
I've always used Mite Away. I really like that, and I think they're kind of going away with that and going into something else. But then this year we did I did the oxalate drip method, and that seems to have worked really well this year. So I will probably continue to use that.
Sure. I know that it's interesting because here in Colorado, where I'm at, we have certainly our challenges with bees too, but I've probably found only 5 wax moth cocoons in a hive ever. And
wow.
It was actually equipment that was in storage. And then I have found 1 small hive beetle ever.
Oh, that's it. That's really good.
And it's weird though, because, Nebraska is not that far from Colorado. So you would think that, we would kind of have more of the same challenges, but it's of course different everywhere you go. But here, one of the big issues, of course, is varroa, but also mice and wasps are pretty big issues.
Oh, really?
Mm-hmm.
Are you talking about mice in the winter, or do they go into the hives all year round? Or
mostly in the winter. We don't have really hard winters here, and if you don't put your mouse guards on soon enough, then without it being terribly cold, they jump in there.
Oh yeah, that's what they mess too when they get in there.
You kind of have an eclectic background with your years in the commercial business and then several years in keeping bees on your own. So do you have any tips for new beekeepers?
I would just say, I think beekeeping is just learning what works for you. And they do say start with 2 hives, and I believe that you should have 2 hives. Then if something goes wrong with one of them, you have backup frames or frames of eggs if you need it. But beekeeping, it's just, I think, learning what's going to work for you, because you ask one beekeeper, I guess if you ask 5 beekeepers a question, you're probably going to get 7 to 10 answers. And that's what I learned my first year. I had a mentor when I started on my own, and I joined the bee club. I had a mentor, and I think it is good to join the bee club. But I had a mentor, and then I also had the president of the bee club that I would talk to about stuff. But they all had different answers, and it's okay, I think I'll just try to do this on my own. Read stuff, you got to do a lot of reading and just see what works best for you. Because one thing that might work for one person might not work for you, or it probably won't work for you. So
yeah, I think that's absolutely great advice.
Yeah, I mean, what would you give a new beekeeper advice with? I think that's the best advice. You just got to feel it out and feel what works for you.
Yeah, I really agree. You read online and you read books and you go to clubs and you get so much information, and some of it is really different. One thing says this and another thing says that, and it can get really confusing. But I mean, my thought process anyways is that if so many different people are keeping bees in their own unique way, then the bees must be pretty adaptable. So pick something, go with it, see if it works for you, and if it doesn't work for you, change it up. And just because somebody does something one way doesn't mean you need to do it the same way.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't mean you're wrong.
Right.
That's fine.
Yeah, I see that a lot where somebody does something and then people get upset with him because they're doing it wrong, but it's not wrong. It's just different.
Yeah. And that's like some of the beekeeping groups on Facebook that I've been in. Some people are just they're not very nice about it too. Like if you don't want to follow their way or you're doing it something, they think it's totally wrong. Some people are just not very nice, some beekeepers.
Yep.
So there's a women's beekeeping group on Facebook, and I like them. They're pretty supportive.
Yeah, I'm on that one as well. And that's definitely my go-to for questions.
I think I dropped out of like a couple of them just because the men were really not very nice.
Yeah. Yes, I feel that some of them are pretty set in their ways and not really open-minded to considering other options.
Oh, yeah. Well, and if you talk about how commercial beekeeping, I think I've gotten into conversations about commercial beekeeping and how I don't really agree with commercial beekeeping. I like a smaller, non-commercial is better for the bees. I think you're able to like maintain them better, but I don't know. I'm not a commercial beekeeper either, so I don't.
Sure. No, I would tend to agree with you. I feel it's kind of like cattle, at the commercial level, they tend to do what is more financially feasible and maybe not necessarily what is the best thing for the bees.
Well, yeah, I mean, I don't know if you've watched videos of them doing harvests and they just kind of throw bees together. It doesn't matter if they're like from the same colony or so yeah.
I think there's that video on Netflix, like More Than Honey or something along those lines, that shows the commercial operation.
Oh, okay. I don't know if I've seen that. Somebody was posting something on one of the Facebook pages. They were showing videos, and it's interesting. I don't know. Mm-hmm. That's probably why they're all suited up too.
Yeah.
when they're checking out the bees.
Yeah, definitely. So talking about Facebook groups, I know that you recently found love via Facebook. So the first thing that I could think of is, which Facebook group did you find love on?
See, I was trying to figure that out. I think it might have been one of the groups that I actually removed myself from. Oh. because now I don't think we're on any of the same beekeeping group pages, but I think it was beekeeping. I think it was just beekeeping is what the group was.
Oh, sure. So one of the groups that kind of has a mixed bag of people, men, women, international, not so much specifically, though obviously the women Facebook one's pretty specifically women. So
yeah.
And so your new fiance is from Turkey, and I know that one of the things that brought you together was beekeeping. So I was wondering if maybe you could share with us some of the difference between beekeeping in U.S. and Turkey.
I did go a couple of times to Turkey to visit, and every time I went, we had to go get bees.
Of course.
So Marcel runs about 100 hives is what he runs, and I guess one difference is the hive styles, and then they usually run on one brood box.
Oh, really?
And they don't use the two brood boxes. I think they do when they'll put another brood box on during honey season, but that's mainly just for the bees to add more honey into the hive. And then they collect all of the honey. They don't, how the way I manage is I have the two brood boxes, and then I put my honey supers on, right, which I know some people do take from the brood boxes, but I don't do that. I leave that for the bees for the winter.
Yep. That's what I do as well.
Yeah. So I just take from the honey supers. They take, I think, any frame that, doesn't have brood on it, they harvest. So, and then I think they do a lot of supplemental feeding, because when you go there to beekeeping stores, they have shops where people make bee fondant and pollen patties and sell bee vitamins. So I think they do a lot of supplemental feeding. Do
they use the Langstroth style hives there?
It's that style, but they're not the same dimensions, which is kind of crazy. Because there's a hive that one of Marcel's friends, it's really cool. I brought it, I had them send it over because I want to try to sell it. But I told them the dimensions need to be the Langstroth dimensions, because they're not. So people can interchange their use their frames that they have. Mm-hmm. So it's off. They're a little bit smaller, and then they don't have the bottom board that we use. It's all one box, or maybe some of them do, but the ones that Marcel and the ones I've seen, I think they're just like one box, and then they have like the entrance, but they're a little bit different. The entrances aren't as wide as ours. They make them smaller. A lot of the Beekeepers, they use just the frame with the wire and the wax foundation. I don't think they use a lot of the plastic foundation. Yeah. Over there. I'm trying to think of what else.
You mentioned the beekeeping stores have, like fondant and stuff available. And I mean, I know that we have beekeeping stores here just as the same, but is beekeeping is it kind of a big thing in Turkey, or is it like here where some people do it?
I think beekeeping is pretty huge over there. I think most people, I guess if you're in agricultural locations, will have bees. So I think there's a lot more people there that have bees than there are here. Mm-hmm. But there's I think a lot more beekeeping stores there than there are here. But it's kind of crazy because they're packaged like you can go in and just pick up a few packages of bee fondant, and they're packaged nicely and everything. Like you just pop them open and put them in the hive. But they're packaged where, here you've got to usually order online to get that stuff if you want to do that or make it yourself.
Right. So other than harvesting most of the honey from the hive, is there any other management practices that are different than the U.S.?
Trying to think if there were a whole lot. Not a whole lot. Just the hive styles are a little bit different. And then I went out to a queen rearing farm where they reared queens at one point, which I was kind of neat looking. They had little boxes all over. I don't know. I think some beekeepers do that here. I don't know. I haven't gone to commercial, like where they commercially produce queens here anyways. I'm not sure if it's different.
I know that there's like mating nukes and queen castles. I wonder if it's something similar to that.
Yeah, I think they're probably similar. Yeah, I'm not sure if there's a whole lot of... they probably manage about the same. Marcel has to move his hives a lot depending on like the season to make sure, that they have a nectar source. So he's moving his a lot more than I would move mine. I haven't moved mine. Like I have bees on 2 properties and I leave them there like all year round.
Mm-hmm. Do you know what some of the main nectar sources in Turkey are?
And like in Antalya, they grow a lot of citrus and orange trees. So that's a huge in the spring. And then I'm trying to think what they have. Oh, pine honey, which pine honey isn't from a flower nectar. It's produced from insects.
Really?
Which is kind of interesting. Yeah. So I forgot the name of the insects, but they live in these pine trees, and then they create a nectar, and the bees collect it. I think from eating the sap, or they eat something on the tree that creates this nectar, and then the bees collect this nectar.
I had never heard of that before.
I didn't know until like a year ago that bees actually collected other sources of nectar besides floral.
Yeah, that's really interesting. I'll have to look more into that. Bees are so creative.
Yeah, but it's like it produce a lot of pine honey over there, and it's supposed to be really good, like Manuka honey. I'm sure people just haven't caught on to it yet.
Sure. So, is there any other differences that you've noted that you thought were interesting, or maybe what was the most surprising difference that you had noticed?
I didn't really notice a whole lot. Marcel and I have different hive management, or we manage hives differently. Like he's obsessed with bees. I love my bees, but he's like obsessed. He's in them like every day, like in his hive.
Oh, really?
Which I don't think you should do that, but if he could be in there a couple times a day, he would be in them checking them out.
Oh.
So, yeah, I think it's pretty similar to how we manage here. It's just they don't have to deal with the winters like we do. It's a lot warmer there.
Are they able to run their hives year round up there in Turkey?
I don't know about year round. I think from like probably about now, or maybe probably. I think they just harvested the pine honey recently within the past like 2 or 3 weeks. So I think it'll be like after the pine harvest, they're pretty much done until I think March.
Okay.
February, March. So there's I think 3 or 4 months where they're kind of in winter mode. There's not much for them to. I don't think there's anything for them to collect. Mm-hmm. So they probably, and I think they do a lot of the fondant in the winter, and then maybe like starting in February they start doing syrup. But I'm not sure. I think it's not like here where we have like October until April-ish. Mm-hmm. I don't know what your season is like.
It's about the same. I'd say.
Okay.
October to, I'd say maybe May, sometimes April.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I guess it just depends on the year. I think my first year of beekeeping, it was really early when they started collecting. But then I think last year was really slow.
Yeah. I've don't put too much in trying to figure out what each year is going to bring. I just wait and watch the bees.
Yeah, that's it. And turkey, like we take the boxes. I'm sure some beekeepers over there do it like we do it here. Like you take the boxes and move them to wherever you're going to extract. Mm-hmm. They do a lot of the extracting on location.
Oh, really?
They actually set up like a tent and like harvest right there. That's something that I think a lot of beekeepers there do.
And do they use an extractor and then just put the frames right back into the hive?
Yeah, they do that. They use an extractor. The equipment's a lot cheaper there too. I kind of wish I could get some of the equipment that they have there. But yeah, they'll extract it on spot. They'll set up a tent and extract as they go. But I think they have more issues with bees, in the way when you do it like that. So they're all suited up extracting.
No, that would certainly make things easier to be able to do it in the field. But my first thought is that it'd be easy to incite some robbing.
Oh yeah, for sure. There's another beekeeper here locally. I haven't checked it out. I've got to go. I was at the farmer's market selling honey when he came, and he actually grabbed Marcel and brought him over to his house to show him. But he has like a trailer that he extracts from. So it's like an enclosed trailer, and he has it all set up like a honey house, which I think would be cool.
Yeah, that's a really good idea.
It is, yeah. So then you just bring the boxes in, extract, come back right away.
Yeah, I don't know why more people don't do that.
I don't know. I think I'm going to look into that because that would make things a lot easier.
Mm-hmm. So sort of switching gears a little bit, I always think it's fun to get to know my guests a little bit better. So what would you say are maybe 5 things that most people don't know about you?
I'm not really sure. I do garden a lot. I like gardening. I'm not the best at it, but, I'm trying.
Sure.
I did go to India and checked out bees in India.
Oh, really?
And, so they have different types of bees over there that they use. There are some that use, like, the European honeybee, mm-hmm. but I forgot the name of the type of bee they are. They're smaller and more aggressive that they use.
Really?
They use a really small hive setup.
Wow.
And then I think they do a lot of the crush and drain method to harvest the honey.
Well, that's something else I didn't know about.
Yeah, they have a totally different, or they have, more wild bees, because I guess they rub, like, if the hive is empty, they'll rub some kind of herbs into it and it attracts bees, and they'll go into the hive. But they're a lot smaller and they fly a little bit different than the honeybee.
Really?
Yeah, that was kind of interesting. So I lived in Mexico for about 5 years. I opened an English school down there.
Oh, really?
While I was there. I used to teach English.
And is that school
all over? It's still open. The boys' college still runs it.
Oh, okay. It sounds like you've really kind of traveled a lot and been to all kinds of places, and most of them related to bees.
My father was in the Air Force, and then we lived in the Philippines too when I was younger.
Oh, wow.
So I've kind of been all over. I don't know much about bees in the Philippines.
Sure.
Mexico, bees in Mexico, like one of their things they have to worry about is the Africanized bees a lot down there.
Oh, sure. Did you have much experience with Africanized bees there?
No, I never did. No, before I had moved down there, I didn't know anything about bees. And I just remember I was outside, like, hanging laundry or something, and I saw a swarm of bees, like, coming towards me, and I was so scared.
Oh.
I ran. I ran because I didn't know that I didn't know they weren't going to be aggressive.
Yeah. And now here you are in a bee suit getting into beehives.
Yeah, it was pretty funny, but yeah, I don't know.
So after traveling,
so do you guys run you run an acreage?
So it's just me, and my husband doesn't really do a whole lot with the bees. He helps me sometimes, but it's really just kind of my hobby and whatnot. Mm-hmm. Oh. So I actually have hives at several different locations. about 5 in my area. And then I also have some hives up at the Broadmoor. And I really do kind of a combination of honey and wax, and then some apprenticeship and teaching other people, maybe people that aren't beekeepers, teaching them about bees, and then teaching beekeepers how to become bees, teaching people interested in becoming beekeepers, the kind of the steps into being successful on their own.
Oh, fine.
Yeah.
Nice.
And then I run my website too, and try to share some information about bees on there. It's heritageacresmarket.com. And then of course the podcast. I really enjoy teaching, and so I try to educate those and inspire people that are interested in becoming bees and help them get on the right foot.
Oh, good. That's nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think teaching people about bees I think it's a lot of fun because most people don't have any clue.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn.
Yeah. Well, even just being around bees, like they just have no clue how to act. And so whenever I have an observation hive, I'll bring out to like the farmer's market or in the spring when I'm able to. Or I do the Renaissance fair that we have out here. And I always make sure I have my bees with me so I can do some education on, selling honey or people think it's really neat.
Yeah, the observation hive is always one that tends to get people's attention, and it's so fun to watch people and see how fascinated they are by them.
It is.
So for people that would like to maybe follow you and get more information and possibly check out some of the honey products that you have for sale, where can people find you online?
So I have a website, omahabees.com. I'm also on Instagram and Facebook, and that's through Beauty and the Bees Honey is where you can find me on Facebook and on Instagram.
Okay, great. And I'll put links to those in the show notes too, so that people can find you easy.
Thank you.
Of course.
No, I'm going to start listening to your podcast.
Oh, thanks. Well, Anna, I really appreciate you taking the time to talk with us today. I really enjoyed learning more about you and your beekeeping, and this was a really lovely conversation. Thank you so much.
Well, thanks for having me.
And for those of you at home, thank you so much for listening to Backyard Bounty, and we'll see you again next week.
Thank you for listening to Backyard Bounty, a podcast by heritageacresmarket.com. Don't forget to subscribe and leave us a review. If you have a question you'd like us to answer on the show, please email us at ask@heritageacresmarket.com. Also find us on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube at Heritage Acres Market. All the links mentioned in this podcast will be included in the description. See you again next week.